So Andy, what systems are you using right now for running your webinars? What kind of technologies need it? And can you fill the viewers in on either, how easy is it or how complicated is it to get started? It sounds like it's a little bit easier now than it was back when you started.
Yeah, I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, in terms of my own competence with technology stuff, I'd say I'm somewhere around a 5. I mean, I'm not awful, but I'm really not that great. So we use Webinar Jam for most of the webinars that we do, and those involve people signing in and getting on my list and chatting and all that type of stuff. So we do those several times a month. Mostly, it's a combination of new and current clients. I've also been using Facebook Live, so either directly with my phone, which is very easy, or with a system called OBS, Open Broadcast Software, that I actually learned about from Andy Falco.
Okay.
I don't know if he's on, but I'd like to at least make fun of him.
Yeah.
If opportunity presents.
I don't think I'm familiar with OBS.
Yeah, it's open software. You just download it. It's free, and it works most of the time. It worked for me today. I did it. We do a weekly show every Tuesday, 12 Eastern,
Okay.
College Talk Tuesday.
And
So I do that, and then we use Entreport, as our CRM, which is kind of like Infusionsoft, but without as much attitude as Infusionsoft used to have.
Yeah. So I had Infusionsoft for a few months years ago, and it was just so complicated and just such a hard system to. And I'm like you. I'm about a 5 or a 6 when it comes to technology, and it's like I just don't get this. So I opted.
What do you use now?
Right now, I'm still using TPNI, but I'm about to transition into something else that I was given the name by Jason P. Jordan and John North, but I just can't remember. It's very similar to Infusionsoft. However, it comes with 1/4 of the price point. It has all that same functionality. So I'm looking at investigating that right now. But right now, it's just TPNI and some MailChimp stuff. But I'm going to be I'm transitioning over. I'm going to be moving over all of my phone numbers to Twilio.
That's so much work.
Yeah, it's such a pain. But anyway, so I know from doing webcasts and webinars myself that it's really less about the technology and more about what you say and how you say it. Can you expand a little bit about the structure of the content for your shows, or maybe the show flow, or when you're putting together a webinar, especially the ones where you plan to sell like some of your services? I know that you do a couple different types, but first let's just talk about the ones where you do weekly, and then we'll talk about the ones that you do sort of once a month, where you actually it's more of a geared towards selling, because the weekly one is more geared towards answering questions. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's answering questions. It's all about, like you said, it's the authority. All this stuff, first and foremost, builds authority, whether it's, on Facebook or whether it's a webinar, or I do a lot of live speaking, in front of smaller groups. Mm-hmm. All that's done to sort of position myself and for my wife to position herself as, people who, know what we're talking about. And then on top of that, to attract people who see that we're kind of relaxed and we're taking, some of the stress out of the process. And also, which I think is equally important, you didn't mention this, is it repels the people that we don't want as clients. And that is really important, because where we are in Long Island, New York, where most of our clients are from, we have New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and then we have all over the world, I guess. But I'd say 70% is sort of local. There's a lot of uptight, parent entitled kids and stuff that we don't want. So it's all done to do that. The weekly stuff is really a combination of answering questions, or presenting something that's timely. So today we actually did one on the dangers of helicopter parenting. Parents who hover over their kids and they do everything for them. Yeah. Just because we have some examples. It's so easy to pull from our own practice examples of stuff to talk about forever and ever.
Yeah. So. On those ones that you're actually doing the question and answer, do you have a specific structure that you follow, or you just get in there and just you have a couple things you want to talk about, but mostly it's just really answering questions from the audience?
So yeah, so you and I kind of learned a lot of this the show flow, show structure stuff from Mike Koenig's, and I think a lot of that plus other stuff I've read has been kind of I've just sort of absorbed.
Right.
So the structure, if that's what it should be called, is really 80% content, 20% some sort of offer. We always make some kind of offer, even if it's only something like, go to our website for a list of upcoming live presentations.
Right.
So, and then if it's questions, it's just very easy just to go back and forth. It really helps having a co-host, which is just more interesting in terms visually. I think my wife is just more interesting than I am also. And you were kidding me about this before, because I told you this last week. Like I'll do these live presentations, and face to face, not webinar things, and more often than not, someone will come up to me and be like, "Oh, I've been watching your webinars for years; they're great and whatever. And where's Pearl?" Or and I should have. I think it's been thrown out. But we get these comment cards. I ask people to fill out a questionnaire every time they finish up with us at a live workshop, and I always ask, like, would you like, what could we improve? And 2 people last time said, in terms of how could we improve it, it was bring Pearl. Which is nice. Kind of a left-handed compliment. I don't know.
Exactly. So obviously that makes Pearl feel good.
Oh, I didn't tell her.
No, you didn't tell her. Okay.
All right, fine. I may have mentioned it.
Yeah. So the ones that you actually once a month or so you do them where you're more or less you're selling your services. Now those ones, I think, do you have more of a plan in mind? Is it more talk us about the content that you would talk about on the ones where you're actually asking people to either buy into your program or buy your consulting services.
Well, the similarities between the two is I'm always going over stuff that we know are the problems of our audience, which is parents with college-bound teens.
Right.
And we know their stress points because we're constantly asking them. We constantly do presentations. There's a lot of give and take. So I really feel like we know our audience really, really well. I'm sure there's room for improvement, but I've been basically doing the same thing over and over again for like 8 years. So hopefully there's not a ton of room for improvement, at least that way.
Yeah.
So in terms of structuring it for a presentation, it's a little more structured. I'll do slides. We'll have make sure the offer for whatever we're offering, whether it's a consultation. It's free if you book, today, otherwise $249. Or if we're offering a service or a product, like, hey, we'll prepare your financial aid forms. Here's the discount. It's good through the weekend or something like that. We always try to get that up there within the first half hour.
Yeah.
So we were taught that way. And in terms of, opening, teach for about 20 minutes, take a break, soft close, answer questions, resume teaching. It is structured a little bit, but not. I wouldn't say it's definitely outlined, but it's not scripted. And I definitely could. I feel like I could improve on the scripting of it, but the outlining I think is pretty good, and usually we're pretty happy with the results.
Excellent. So Andy, let's talk a little bit about some of the stats that you have for your webinars for your business. Do you know any of the conversion rates that you're getting? For example, what percentage of the people that go to the registration page are opting in, and what percentage are showing up, and what percentage stay through the whole thing, and then what percentage end up buying? Are you guys tracking that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely could be a lot better about paying attention to that stuff, but Webinar Jam lets you do all that. It's very easy. So typically, the sign-up rate of people who hit the page compared to who actually sign up is usually higher than whatever the conversion is on that template. Like Webinar Jam says, you can pick a template for your sign-up page, and you can choose it by highest converting.
Right.
And sometimes the highest converting is like 40%, and we'll get like 105%, which I don't. Again, I think there's something wrong with that, but either people are signing up multiple times, which I don't think, or there's something wrong, or people who auto-subscribed to my, from a previous webinar, that's an option. Maybe they're being counted in there.
Yeah.
So that makes me think, okay, that's not so useful. So anyway, that's one stat. And then in terms of, it's funny. So when we, I think when you and I were taught, when we, one of the classes we took together, I think we were hammered home the point to make it live and don't necessarily tell them there's going to be a replay or, and then later you can say it's an encore. So I did that for a while. And when it was cold traffic, I was having a hard time getting 30 to 40% people to show up. And when I was doing it to my list, it was a little bit better. But then I came across something else somewhere that I read, and the guy said something like he gets most of his, sometimes doubles his attendance rate through the replay. So what I switched to doing was saying, okay, sign up now. And if you miss it, if you can't make it, sign up anyway, because I'll have the replay running through the weekend.
Right.
And so I'll do it on a Thursday, and then that allows me Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to remind them about the webinar, answer some questions that came up, and make more offers. So it might be 40% initially, and then I may pick up literally another 25, 30 or more percent. So it could be 70, 75% total of the people who register. So if it's like, if I'm on a good day for me, I'll get 400 to 500 people registering for a webinar, and I might get 3/4 of them. And then out of that, depending on what I'm offering, I may only get, if I'm offering a consult, I get a much higher conversion.
Right.
I might get 10%, a lot. But if I'm offering a service or something, it might be 5%, 3%. It really depends. But like I was saying before, I think in terms of the authority that it creates, I almost care more about that, because when I actually sit down with someone, and I'm selling a very high end coaching thing,
right.
So people pay me between $2,500 to $10,000 depending on the services and how long we're working with them. So when I sit down with someone for the first time that I've never met them, but they tell me, which happens all the time, I've been getting your webinars, I've been getting your emails, I saw you speak live a couple of times. It's like it's like a cumulative type of thing. Yeah. And then it's very easy for them to write a check for $5,000 or whatever. That's what I really like. When people say that they've seen me, or they got my my webinar passed to them by a friend, or all this other type of stuff. So that's part of it. I just can't track it.
Yeah. So it's really the amount of the authority that you're building throughout the time of actually doing the webinars makes the actual sales process, or the closing at the end, that much easier, where people, they've made that buying decision over time. It's not that during that one hour or 1.5 hours you're getting them to enroll in a $10,000 coaching program. So, it's over time, and they just keep seeing this stuff over and over and over, and subscribing. And they know that they actually have to take some sort of action because their children are of a certain age.
Right.
That during that, when they're ready to actually take action, it's much easier. It's a much easier sell for you than, say, if you're just meeting somebody and within an hour you're trying to close them.
I'll give you a quick story, and before I do that, though, your point is it just makes me think, like, I could probably be less of a wuss and try to close people on high-end coaching right there. And I've done a few things like that. I've done some $5,000 programs. I probably picked up 4 or 5 of those over the summer, when I just launched sort of a soft group coaching thing. Yeah. So I think that's got, I want to revisit that, but the time of year for me right now is not really right to be doing that. But so I have a client who hired me a couple of weeks ago, for the higher end of that range that I gave you, and she said, I saw you at the blah 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 library 2 years ago, and when my oldest daughter was in 9th grade, and I went because I heard about you from the library, from the school or something, and I was looking in the front row at all these moms who had older kids, and the looks on their faces were so stressed out and they were so tense, and I said to myself, I'm not going to be one of those ladies, And so then when so I've been on your webinars, I've seen you speak again, and then, now I'm here, and, I know that you can really help us, and I'm hoping that, you can take us on as clients, because that's another thing. I always position it, again, this is stuff we've been taught. I always position them coming to me as if, I believe it actually, so it's not really a positioning thing, but I position it as if I'm the college they're applying to, for me to take them on. And I really want that to be the case, because I don't want to work with a kid who's not going to be coachable. That's really going to be annoying for me. The parents are going to blame me. They're going to pay me all this money. So it's a no-win for me. But that's the best case of how it works when they say things back to me that I've engineered.
Yeah, so not only are you screening through your copy and the content that you're putting out there, but it's almost like you have a screening process or an application process when somebody actually wants to work with you as well.
That application process is part of the authority positioning and part of them, buying in, taking more micro commitment type steps, which is the Cialdini term and probably many others, in order to move closer to wanting me. And I use a lot of sort of takeaway selling too. I mean, I say I only take on a finite amount of kids, and I want to make sure they're the right fit, because my worst nightmare is that parents love me and I love the parents, but the kid takes this advice that costs the parents a lot of money, and I'm sorry, receives the advice but doesn't implement the advice that costs the parents a lot of money,
right.
And everyone's mad at me, and it's not my fault. And I'm mad at the kid, and it's like pounding a square peg to a round hole. Yeah. I don't need to do that. I have 4 kids of my own. If I want to fight with kids, I can do that at home.
Exactly.
For free.
Yeah, you don't get paid to you don't get paid to fight with your own kids, though.
I pay to.
You pay to.
Yeah, they're a liability.
So we were just talking about some of your products and the price point. So can you fill us in on sort of what the range of your products or services are that you're actually selling through the webinar? Maybe just go through the different ones that you have available. Do you have like information products? Is it all just sort of one-on-one consulting or high-end coaching? Sort of, can you just give us an idea what kinds of things that you're actually selling through the webinar?
Yeah. So first and foremost, the free consult is definitely the main thing, because that's looking for high-end clients. Okay. We call it a college strategy session. And probably the second big thing that gets response is we've tried to sort of carve up parts of what we do for consulting. We've tried to 20 to 40 a year, at different times in the year. I don't always offer because I'm concerned it's going to take away from, our consulting. But right. That's just, money. It's more of a drop-down offer for people who don't take us up on the higher end stuff. Right. And then I have another product, which is, the incomparable applicant, which is how to get into college. And it's, again, a similar instruction.